PG-13 says officiating for him, Russ, and Melo is just different. Stephen A., he right?
I think to some degree he is, because there's a level of aggression that they show, and they're not the 260-pound locomotive that LeBron James is. Paul George is tall, has a slight frame, very strong. Russell Westbrook is incredibly strong, but also lean and mean. They attack the basket with fervor. They hit a lot more than referees give them credit for. There's no doubt about that. But I also would say this, even though I do agree with Paul George somewhat, and it was nice seeing him during All-Star Weekend, I will tell you I don't like him complaining about this, and here's why. I think it's about that time that a Russell Westbrook, a Paul George, and Carmelo Anthony recognize that unfortunately, there's a level of respect, dare I say, that they have to earn. The fact of the matter is that you see these other stars getting these calls, complaining about it ain't going to be good enough. Officials and everybody else need to see you do something about it, and in spite of it. This is a team that's 35-27. You're 8 games over 500. With a big three like that, more was expected. So thus far this season, they've somewhat underachieved. I would like to see Paul George, and I know Russell Westbrook's going to do it because he always does it, but Paul George and Carmelo Anthony in particular, I'd like to see them get a bit more upset, get a bit more cantankerous, and step out on the court and just destroy the opposition. Just go at them, remind the world of how elite you are, and force them to pay attention to you rather than just saying the officials ain't giving us calls. I think that's how you overcome some of this. Just whining about the officiating ain't gonna get it done.
Well, I'm going to start by responding to that. I think they're plenty aggressive. I think, if anything, Russell Westbrook sometimes should fight his aggressive nature. Not don't be aggressive, but when things aren't going your way, don't pull even harder. Relax a little bit. If anything, Russell Westbrook in particular attacks with ever more ferocities, like the Incredible Hulk. I don't know if that's in their best interest, but I want to talk. In theory, I agree with what you're saying, but in practice, I think it may be something else here. You know, when I talk about stats or analytics, and Stephen A., you or others will roll their eyes, oh, stats. Statistics are records of events that actually took place. You're just compiling, the numbers of times that an event took place. And if you look at Paul George's claim that they're not getting calls, look, the big three, Carmelo, Westbrook, and Paul George, get 23% of the time that they're contacting the paint called for fouls. The league average is 17%. So is Paul George's claim that, hey, we're more than 25% ahead of league average? Because that's roughly, you go from 17% to 23%, about a 25% increase in the number of times you get. We're more than that. We're just not getting those calls. Maybe he's saying, look, we're so good that guys are putting their hands on us even more and we're not getting those calls. The problem is there's another stat from our friends at Second Spectrum that speaks precisely to that as it relates to Paul George. So far this year, there are 125 players who have drawn contact in the painted area, right, on drives. 125 times that they've had their shots contested in the paint. Shots contested in the paint. Paul George is one of those players. He gets the foul called 31% of the time. So the question is, where does that rank in the league? Stephen A., I am here to tell you it is number 1 in the NBA. Very tough for Paul George to argue that he's not getting calls, or he should be getting even more calls, because relative to everyone else, he gets the most calls. Unless his argument is he's naturally better at drawing contact in the paint than everyone else in the league, because he's number 1.
Max, my response to you is everything ain't about numbers. You usually use the word context or contextualizing. Well, we have to contextualize what he's saying. He's not looking at it from a numbers perspective. He's looking at the way that he plays and what he brings to the table compared to others. And if you're taking that into consideration, then it's not just about the numbers. Let's say, for example, Max, he goes to the line 5 more times than other guys playing his position. You can't just look at that number and say, okay, what you're complaining about. If he goes to the basket with a level of aggression and skill, if he's positions himself to draw fouls better than much, if he's more effective than other people, but somehow, some way he's not getting to the line as much as he should, it's problematic. LeBron James shooting 6 times a game, it's an absolute travesty. He should go to the free throw line more. Clearly, there are calls that they are missing. But the flip side to it is that LeBron James, because of his power and his prowess, is initiating a lot more contact than Paul George may have the ability to from time to time. I'm just saying, contextualizing it, you might look at it
I hear what
differently.
you're
That's
saying.
all I'm saying.